All right, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready, except what episode is this? 54?
5.
55.
Yes.
Well, welcome to episode 55, everybody, of the What Makes Us Human podcast. Right here's John Lindeman, and over there is J.R. Parks, and we just did a nice long mic check to get everything right.
Yeah, something got tweaked on the board, but I think we got it squared away. So
Tweak.
how are you doing, John?
I'm tired. Kind of laid around a little bit this afternoon, reading on our subject matter for today, just tightening it up a little bit, and yeah, I'm tired today, but I'm doing good.
Good.
Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. So
You just ate some Bojangles,
yeah,
which is big down here in North Carolina.
yep. So we're having a bit of a blackberry winter right now.
Yes.
It's noticeably cooler today.
Yes. I walked out to go to church this morning and was like, whoa. Very cold. Like 52 or something.
Yeah, I almost grabbed a jacket to come here this evening, but yeah, it definitely was cooler.
It'll be June in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
It's almost halfway to Jesus' birthday.
that means we're going to the beach in like 2 weeks.
Awesome. Gonna do some fishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So today we are talking about something that I really wish was real, but I think
It might be real.
It might be, but I think we'd have done. I don't think we're in the process of discovery, as I heard one fella say this week. But anyway, it might be real, but I've got feelings that it ain't.
All right.
So today we're talking about, and please don't turn us off as soon as I say this word. This is going to be good. It's going to be fun. But today we're talking, it's not going to be ultra weird, but today we're talking about Bigfoot.
Sasquatch. All right.
Yeti.
Sasquatch.
My dog's name is Yeti.
You started to say your dog's name is Sasquatch.
I did. That'd be hilarious. Sasquatch. But we're like, Yeti, get out of that bag of chips.
Especially given it's not a very large dog. That'd be
Right.
really funny that it's called Sasquatch.
Yeah, he's a beagle, so he's not very large. He's got a large attitude, but yeah. So this is one that I don't remember not knowing. That's one heck of a triple double negative, but I don't remember a time in my life when I was not aware of Bigfoot.
Okay.
I don't remember learning about Bigfoot. In
Yeah.
other words, do you?
No, it's something that from popular culture, I guess, has just kind of always been there.
Like it's beef jerky advertisements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cartoons featuring Bigfoot.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
Yeah, with John Lithgow.
Episodes of, I don't know, on Discovery Channel or Science Channel or the Learning Channel or something.
Yeah, some of those are really terrible. I mean, like really D-rated.
I think TLC wants people to forget that stands for the Learning Channel.
I think they do too. That's a good point. It's just tender love and not care.
It's I don't know, reality TV,
Yeah.
pregnant teenagers, weird shows.
There's a band name in there somewhere. The Pregnant Teenagers.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Opening for Demon Benfield Sanitation Monster or whatever. What was the one that got me really... Oh, Kielbasa Preschool. That's the one that got me really tickled. Yeah. But yeah, so this is one of those things... I'm getting my hands up, which means I'm getting excited. But this is one of those things that is cross-cultural, so you can go back, way back, to just about any group of people in the world, and if you were to live amongst them long enough, eventually you're going to hear about this large and in charge, usually smelly, always hairy, always muscular, and always large-footed, bipedal or bipedal creature that roams around the outskirts of humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, if it wasn't for the fact that there are a number of examples from different cultures going quite a ways back
Right.
of these kinds of stories, from a New World perspective alone, it feels like this is one of those things where the Native Americans sent the white guy that showed up on a snipe hunt. You know,
Oh.
they told him, "Oh, let's see what we can get away with." Oh, there's this, being that kind of looks like a man and kind of looks like a bear or an ape, or I wouldn't have known what an ape was, but it in a lot of cases it's with those stories it's cannibalistic and all these different things. And
The Wendigo.
It's kind of hey, let's send the explorer that just showed up on a snipe hunt.
Okay,
Wendigo's different.
Wendigo's different, yeah, but it's on the outskirts of the town. There's some fear associated with the Wendigo. The Wendigo is cannibalistic. But in all my studying with this, that's the first really new angle I've heard. That's pretty good.
Oh,
I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah,
it's almost like a snipe hunt for the new kid in town.
Yeah, but if you actually look, no, they have records that predate.
Yeah.
Explorers showing up. So it's not, but it seems like it could very easily be that.
Gotcha. So all the way back in like 326 BC, there's this famous Macedonian with a horse named Bucephalus, named Alexander the Great. And my wife, I drove her nuts in college. I was a history major, and she didn't really care for history, so I made her memorize one thing. And if you ask her to this day, what's the name of Alexander the Great's horse, she'll look at you and say Bucephalus. It took me a while to get her to quit saying Bocephus.
Oh. Now, Macedonian or Macedonian?
I say Macedonian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Macedonian sounds like macaroon.
Yeah, it sounds like macaroons or macadamia nuts.
I mean, I hear both from historians.
Yeah.
So I guess it's one of those things where we haven't heard it spoken, so we're looking at it written and guessing at how it's pronounced.
Yeah. So when Alexander the Great, he made it into, I guess, the Indus River Valley area.
Okay.
And he had heard rumblings about this large being that lived in the area, and one of his first requests once they got there was he asked the guy in charge that he was replacing. He said, "Take me to see one of these things," and they said, "Well, they live way up around the snow line, and you don't have time for that. You got more blood to spill." So he didn't get to go see it.
All right.
But I thought it was neat that you're just 300 years out from the time of Christ, and you're here. There's record of conversations about these beings all the way back then.
Absolutely.
That's weird. I was not I was expecting to find something from maybe the time of the Reformation, the 1500s. I was not expecting to find something around the time of the Council of Nicaea.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
way back.
You actually predating the Council of Nicaea by quite a bit.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's because by default we almost think of them as Yeti and Sasquatch as separate creatures.
Right.
So by default, when we think of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, we don't necessarily think about it going back that far. We think of it as a New World thing.
Oh, yeah, see, okay.
Once you basically say Yeti is the same and it's just the snow version or
it's
the
worldwide
cold version or whatever, there's stories from everywhere, then yeah, it definitely goes back quite a bit.
It's a worldwide phenomenon. Yeah, so Yeti, when you say Yeti, you're pretty much referencing an Asian from that area, the Asian continent. So let's talk about that for just a minute.
Okay.
So in 1921, there was a journalist by the name of Henry Newman, and he was able to interview a group of British explorers who had just returned from an expedition at Mount Everest. Now, if you think 1921, Brits that are returning from Mount Everest, these are the coolest of cool guys. They are the creme de la creme of the adventurer, kind of like Brad Pitt in 7 Years in Tibet. You know what I mean? These are bad dudes.
Yeah, is this the guy that was looking for a new way up Everest? He was in the Himalayas looking for a new way up Everest.
I'm not sure because the focus here is Henry Newman, the journalist,
Okay.
and he probably was.
Yeah, I think they were kind of looking for like a new way up the kind of the backside of Everest.
Yeah. Because this predates Sir Edmund Hillary making it to the top with Tenzing Norgay. So Henry Newman interviews these Brits, and they tell him that they have seen some very large footprints on the mountain, and that their guides, their Tibetan, I guess, guides, attributed these footprints to something called the Metokongmi.
Okay.
Now, the Metokongmi translates in English into man-bear snowman.
Okay.
Man-bear snowman.
Man, bear, pig.
Yeah, right.
Pig bear man? No, man bear pig.
So, Metokongmi.
Okay.
Now, Newman got the snowman part right, but as most journalists are wont to do, they misspell your last name or something in the story. He got twisted around and he mistranslated. He knew a little bit of Tibetan, I guess, or whatever you call it, but he mistranslated it into meto, which is filthy. So he translated it into man, bear, filthy man.
Okay.
But then he couldn't quite get that to sound right in his article, so he just changed it completely into
Abominable.
snowman.
Yep.
And now you have a cultural bomb exploding in the West about this, because this is at a time when
There's still a lot of the Earth at this point that hasn't been explored.
Right, but we have to view that through the proper lens.
Hasn't been explored by white guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Hasn't
been explored by the British, basically.
By the British, yep, and the Americans, what have you.
Later Americans, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not discovered, it seems like, until one of those folks finds it.
Meanwhile, these people have known that this thing is there, going back generations.
And generations, so this cultural bomb goes off in the West, and people are imagining these tribes of undiscovered snowmen that smell bad living around the drainage areas on the side of Mount Everest, and they're waiting with anticipation to hear about the discovery of this whole groups of these things, and eventually they'll be in the zoo at Asheboro, North Carolina, So this is a different time.
Yeah, I think this is also when they got the picture of the footprints.
Yes, and I'm going to send that to you.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a picture. They took a picture of the footprints with like the ice axe set next to it, so you had an idea of how big the footprint is.
And what is weird about this? Now, okay, these prints are not as large as later prints that appear in the Northwest territory of America.
Yeah.
But they are big. I mean, Shaq might have been able to make these, in other words.
Okay.
Okay. But they're barefoot.
Yeah.
In the snow at about 19,000 feet. So for one thing, you're a nut if you're up there walking around in bare feet.
Sure, you're going to die of frostbite very quickly, or at least lose your toes.
And one of the photographs shows these things going on down the mountain, and they say that they followed them for a good quarter to half a mile. So there were hundreds.
Yeah.
This is the one thing that perks my eyebrow up.
Yeah.
And I still view this like leprechauns or something. Like, there's just no way, to me, as a skeptic, who wants to be a believer, but it just ain't happening. It's like Lieutenant Dan, she was pretty, but she tastes like cigarettes. It's just, we're never going to get a second date here. But I wish we could.
But in 1921, when I guess maybe you could say the larger world wasn't aware of this stuff, it seemed much more like, we haven't been to these jungles. We haven't been up on these mountains. Who knows what could be there?
Yeah. So that's how we get Abominable Snowman.
Okay.
Now, also with the Yeti, you have this crazy story.
So where does the term Yeti come from?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. It's got to be a part of a word from the native language there in the Tibetan area, I guess. But there's this crazy story of a Nepalese monastery. So, now you're in Nepal. There's a Nepalese monastery that has this hand that is kind of held, it's the bones, all the bones that form a hand, and it's a huge hand. And it's kind of held together with a little bit of cloth, some remnants of skin and fur, and some rope. And it's kind of crudely made. But the remnants of this hand were in the Nepalese monastery, and people would pay to go see it, and for a little more pay, you could take a photo of it if you were rich enough and had a camera. And this helped the monastery keep itself going and whatnot, and funded it. But by the 1950s, I can't remember this guy's name, but another British explorer is able to convince them to give him one of the tiny bones from the hand, well, a finger bone from this hand. And next to the hand was also the skull cap of a Yeti. Okay. Like it's big. The whole top of the head is sitting there. That's weird to see. You can find pictures of this.
Sure.
All right. So he gets this finger, but then he smuggles it out of India with the help of famous Hollywood actor who's also slightly adventurous, Jimmy Stewart.
Okay.
Jimmy Stewart is able to get it back to his home base by putting the finger bone in some lingerie in his wife's lingerie case. Knowing that in the 1950s, that's one thing they're not going to rifle through at the airport if they rifle through anything at all.
Okay.
Now, years later, a guy named Dr. Rob Ogden of the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland was able to look at this thing with some DNA analysis and determine it was a human finger. So they were able to do the same thing with the skull cap in the Nepalese monastery, and that was from a goat. It was skin from a goat made in the shape of a head.
This is a little like the guy in Washington State selling Bigfoot T-shirts or something.
To make money.
Yeah, it's a money making venture.
And more than likely, the hand was probably from a llama that had been in the monastery years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
So really creepy that then she had Jimmy Stewart's wife had that in her underwear. That's funny. She had Bigfoot's finger in her underwear. So there's a story she can tell.
Yeah. Not many people can say that.
No, I can't say that.
You shouldn't say that.
No, you shouldn't say that. Might be a band name in that somewhere too. No. Now here in America, do you know some of the names that we call this thing in America? Obviously, we call it Bigfoot.
Sasquatch. I know there's a version of this in the Florida swamps called a skunk ape.
The skunk ape, yeah. And then in Ohio.
That one I don't know.
The grass man.
Okay.
The grass man of Ohio.
Okay.
Now, up in, oh gosh, I think it's Vermont, maybe. There's a whole nother being called the Woofahumpus.
Okay.
Have you heard, or the Hoofawampus?
Okay.
Have you heard of this thing? Have you heard of this, Hannah? And now this thing is hilarious because, now if you're a big believer in this, I don't mean to offend you, but this one takes the cake. So it's either the Hoofawampus or the Wafahumpus. I think it's Hoofawampus.
Bless you.
Thank you. But it is made to stand. The males have their right legs way shorter than their left, and the females have their left legs way shorter than their right, so they can stand on hillsides and run faster. I am not kidding you.
All right.
And it looks kind of like a goat, like a giant goat, I believe. Yeah.
But it's bipedal.
I think so.
Wampahoofus.
The Wampahoofus. I still missed it. I don't think I got it at all, did I?
No.
What did I say? The
Wampahumpus. That was what you said. Or the Hoofawampus or something. I don't know.
So what's the real name?
You sound like Tigger. Trying to say
anything?
Elephants and weasels.
Oh, okay.
He calls them heffalumps and woozles. That's what you sound like right now.
It is the Wampahoofus.
The Wampahoofus.
Yes.
All right. I'm getting a shirt from Amazon with this thing on.
Also called side hill gougers.
That's it, the side hill gouger. And they gouge a trail as they walk. And now this is the funny part. I about wrecked my car. I heard this on a podcast, and I about wrecked my little Honda listening to this. If they get turned around facing the wrong way, they'll roll to their death. because
one leg
is longer than the other.
Yeah.
So this is like the greatest evolutionary gag. If you believe in evolution, this is the greatest Richard Dawkins selfish gene gag that God has ever pulled.
So these are kind of considered to be part deer. So that would make them quite a bit different than.
Oh yeah. I just had to bring this up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just had to bring this is Sasquatch ending up in a wheelchair. That's what this is, but wheeling his way through the pine trees.
All right.
Yeah. So Stephen Jay Gould would have a fit with this one. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so we've got all sorts of names for this thing, and one of the things that announces the arrival in your general personal space of one of these dudes or dudettes is a smell. That seems to be something that has come down through time, along with the tail, is that you'll smell a rank, hence the word skunk ape coming out of Florida there in the Everglades.
Yeah, I kind of, I think what I remember is that the skunk ape is called that because it smells like a skunk. Whereas the other instances of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, maybe it's more of a musk smell, like strong musk.
I've heard, red musky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Pennsylvania. Now, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure what in Pennsylvania, and if you know in Pennsylvania what you call this, write in and let us know. But in 1858 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Amish country.
Yep. That year, a series of wild man sightings.
Okay.
So we hadn't had the Bigfoot beef jerky revolution yet. But that year, a series of wild man sightings frightened the townspeople of the Lancaster area.
Are they sure it wasn't just an Amish teenager on Rumspringa?
Yes, because of what I'm getting ready to read.
Okay.
He was having one heck of a Rumspringa if he's doing what I'm getting ready to read.
All right.
This is good. I'm glad you asked that. All right, so that year, a series of wild men sightings frightened the townspeople. And then I quote, hairy and strong, the wild man was seen in the pen sucking the cows.
I'm afraid to ask what I need to ask.
I guess he's getting milk, you know.
Oh, okay.
This is cows. It wasn't bulls. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John.
No, I was like sucking the blood, or where were we going with this?
So,
okay.
Horses seem to freak out at the presence of this thing, but the cows were just like, okay.
To be fair, horses freak out about anything.
That's true, yeah.
This is so this is kind of the Amish country version of a chupacabra.
There you go, yeah.
Only the chupacabra, I guess, sucks the blood of goats.
But he just needed some good whole raw milk.
All right.
When startled, it obviously leaped out from underneath the cow, turned and bounded away like a frightened deer.
All right. Like ran on all fours?
No. Well, they say bounded. Like these things, evidently they leap great distances at once.
Okay.
Yeah. August 26th of 1980, so 122 years later, Johnstown, PA, a large print was found in the mud with 6 toes.
Okay.
So this is kind of like the Sons of Anak.
That's what I was thinking, Sons of Anak.
In the Bible. It was the right foot that they found the first print. The left foot was 8 feet away. Now, if let's hash this out. At some point, common sense has to prevail. So, if you do the math, this thing would have been 17 feet tall.
Or can really jump.
Right. So to have a normal stride of 8 feet, you're looking at 15 to 17 some feet tall.
Okay.
I don't think a cow's going to let you lay under it at that height. I just don't think that's going to happen. And strange noises were heard the night before and the day of the sighting of the print, and people smelled a musky odor in the air the night before the print was found.
All right.
This sounds like a prank.
A little bit.
Yeah. Oh, okay. In 1951, more prints were found around a drainage basin on one of the sides of Mount Everest. More prints.
Okay.
The crew followed the prints. They took more pics of them, just like the first story. And these were sold at auction at Christie's in 2014 for $14,000, the photographs.
Wow.
Yes. All right, now, if you've ever gotten on YouTube, and if you haven't done this, as soon as I say this, I want you to stop and do it, and then just turn us right back on. There's something called the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. So, dear listener, if you have not seen it's only like a minute long, so it's not going to take you long to watch it. But if you haven't seen the Patterson-Gimlin film, go to YouTube and type in Patterson-Gimlin, and it will more than likely pop up.
This is the one with the still image that everybody thinks of when they think of Bigfoot, right? Where it's kind of walking,
Looking over his shoulder at you.
Yeah. That's a still from that video.
Yep, and
Okay.
there's like logs laying in the river
Yeah.
and stepping over. Yep. All right, now that you have watched the YouTube video and you've been astounded by what you've seen, let's talk about it. So this happened October 20th, 1967. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, good buddies. Bob tended to follow Roger wherever he went and supported all of his crazy things that he chased after. Bigfoot was just one of them. He had inventions. He tried to sell things to Disney.
Okay.
He created things and tried to sell them off as real. He's quite the character, Patterson was. And Bob was kind of just went with him. But they were riding horses through an area called Bluff Creek, California, about 18 miles from the ocean. And around 1 p.m. that afternoon, their horses began to act strange. And then they saw it 100 feet away, stepping across the water and over some logs, looking at them over its shoulder. Patterson grabbed his... Now, this is interesting. Patterson just happened to have his Sena Kodak 16mm camera by his side because he always had it with him when he went in the woods because he was a Bigfoot hunter. He grabbed the camera and he filmed the 16mm film, which is the most famous Bigfoot sighting of all time. What do you think of that?
So he was a Bigfoot hunter prior to this. Like, he was already looking for Bigfoot prior to this. It wasn't like he's some guy who didn't know this thing existed and took a
Right.
video of it. Yeah, okay.
All right, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Okay. They were there scouting out an area to film a short film about Bigfoot, and Bigfoot was going to be in the film.
All right.
So which means they had purchased a what?
A Bigfoot costume.
They had purchased a Bigfoot costume.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Gimlin went to his deathbed with that this was real.
Okay.
Swore to the end of his days, all the way to the end. Took it to his grave that this was real. And he even said things like, just because you may be going to make a film about Brad Pitt, and then there is Brad Pitt, doesn't mean you staged it just because it happened. And he didn't say that, but he said things like that till the day he died. Just because you're going to film it and it appears doesn't mean you made it up. Now, does the ball seem to be in his court? No.
Sure.
But Bob took it to his deathbed that this was real. Now, costume designer Phil Morris said that he made that costume for Roger Patterson. But Patterson says, well, of course he did, because we were going to film a film about Bigfoot on location out there at Bluff Creek, California.
Was this a known thing prior to, or once the costume designer came out and said, hey, I made these people a Bigfoot costume, they came out with this story as a reason why they had a Bigfoot costume?
I don't know the chronology.
Okay.
A Yakima, Washington man admitted that he was in the costume.
Oh.
All right, now, everybody in this seems to have some sort of, I don't want to say blood on their hands, but agenda. Okay? What happened with this film? It made a lot of money. Not through movies and movie rights, but Roger Patterson was able to milk this thing
Sure.
with the Bigfoot crowd. So anybody, if it was faked, anybody that did anything with it is all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork wanting some nickels.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's what he's, and you can reverse all these arguments and have an argument, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the things about this, I watched this on television years ago about this particular film. They had some sort of biologist from, and I don't know the guy's credentials, but he's a biologist from a reputable university. I can't remember the name of it. But I remember thinking, well, this guy's probably going to say, this is ridiculous, this is not real. And he said there's one thing that makes the hair on his neck stand up with this film. He said if you look very closely, it's a she.
Oh, okay.
And he said if you make you can see the breasts. And he's right.
Okay.
And man, you're doing some real prep work for a gag. If you say, hey, I want you to make me a Bigfoot costume, but make it the lady.
Okay, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're really thinking if you go to that level with this thing. So that's one of the only other times I've been like, now that is weird. You know, that is strange. Now, could that guy be wrong and me be seeing that just because he says to see it? Yes.
Sure. It's not, I mean, it's a grainy old film.
Right.
So, yeah.
Very interesting. So, does this prove Bigfoot exists? No, it does not. Do we have Bigfoot on camera? Yes. So the whole thing about this that I gleaned from this entire ordeal with Bigfoot is what does it take? What does it take?
Evidence-wise?
For us to believe that something exists.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Because we got it on film.
Maybe.
But see, so culturally, it is and I cannot think of the word. Culturally, it's a snipe. You know? And once you are a snipe in your culture, they could almost bring the dead body still warm to your feet, and you're going to be like, nope, I don't believe it. You know?
Yeah, and it doesn't help that there have been a lot of documented hoaxes around this.
It makes it worse, yeah. It makes it almost totally unbelievable.
There was a guy in, I think it was 1920s in Washington State, because there's Bigfoot sightings. There's quite a few in the North Carolina mountains, but, more than anywhere else, it's the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
And there was a guy in Washington State in the 1920s when all these people were, saying they found Bigfoot footprints and stuff. Well, it was like a logger, I think he was, who crafted a pair of oversized feet that he could wear as shoes and stomped around the woods, basically just to mess with the tourists because he didn't like the tourists coming in, trying to scare them off.
Right.
And, he later admitted to this and maybe he wasn't clear on this, but maybe even made some others for his neighbors. So there was multiple people out stomping around with these giant feet, trying to mess with people. So that's just one of a lot. I mean, there's people who claim they had the body of Bigfoot and it's some kind of animal that taxidermist did something strange to or whatever,
Yeah, it makes it to the point where normal folks are not. They are not going to be in the believers crowd because of the past.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the one thing it has working in its favor is, what was it? The mountain ape that we were pretty sure wasn't real until the 20th century.
The silverback gorilla.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Until
I
the
think
20th
so.
century when we actually saw them in the wild kind of thing.
But that once again goes back to once the white guy saw it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Once there was real documented evidence, and I mean now you can go see a silverback gorilla in the zoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
the giant panda.
Yeah.
But the Chinese, I guess, knew it was there.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because even some of those cultures with the panda, I mean, there were Japanese citizens, for example, looking for giant pandas on some of these islands in the Pacific.
Okay.
So even culturally, they weren't sure that
was like a
that
ghost.
they were still that they maybe that they existed at one point, but maybe they weren't still around. Maybe they were extinct or what have you. They're looking for existence of them in the wild.
Yeah.
But that's what the kid who found Hiro Onoda on the island in the Philippines after World War II,
Yes.
the 70s.
Yeah.
He said he was looking for Hiro Onoda and the existence of pandas in the wild, giant pandas in the wild.
Wow, that's awesome.
But anyway.
And he found one, right?
Yeah, he found one of those. Well, I was going to say, one thing that maybe sets Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti apart from, say, a silverback gorilla or another large animal, even a bear or what have you, that you might find in the woods, seems to be the level of intelligence.
Yeah, because they say it like throws rocks and knocks wood and stuff.
Possibly throws rocks, knocks, which again just sounds like something you told the explorer who showed up. Oh, this thing is knocking in the woods.
Yeah.
So when you hear what ends up being a woodpecker, it's that's Sasquatch. But
and they call listening for those squatching.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go squatching, you're listening for wood knocks.
But I mean, in a way, in the descriptions of these encounters, it almost seems like certainly the Sasquatch is aware of the people and responding to the people, but maybe even stalking the people or following the people.
Right.
In a way that a wild animal typically wouldn't.
But what's wild is if this thing is not real, then these people have lost their minds in a way. I mean, no offense, but it's like you're out there chasing a phantom and you are hearing a phantom and you're finding evidence of a phantom and you're super excited, but it's not. It's all in your head. You're finding what you're looking for.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found very interesting in looking up kind of where popular Bigfoot sightings are, because again, they're kind of all over, but particularly in the Pacific Northwest and up into Canada, but not Alaska. There are basically none in Alaska.
Why is that?
And it's like if there's anywhere that, and even if you take into like a per capita basis and all that, there's just really no sightings in Alaska.
Can't make the numbers grow.
If there's anywhere that some creature that doesn't want to be found that already exists in the Pacific Northwest is going to go, it's going to be Alaska.
Yeah.
If it's already in the Pacific Northwest, it's already in Canada. It's going to go into Alaska.
Yeah.
But no.
So that would make you think it is a cultural thing.
It certainly seems.
Because I don't equate, when I think Alaska, I never think Sasquatch. It's not, you don't sell T-shirts up there with
it's not
Sasquatch.
reported, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are parts of southern Alaska are the same as the parts of Canada right before it. So from an environment standpoint, if this thing exists in those parts of Canada, it should also be in those parts of Alaska.
Yes.
But
now there's another film that was produced, and I can't read. It's either in 82 or 92. I think it's 92, by Paul Freeman, a U.S. Forest Service patrolman.
Okay.
Now this is not a guy. This one's weird to me. This is not a fella looking that I would think is looking for fame. He is a U.S. Forest Service patrolman. So he's alone for a living.
Sure.
He's not auditioning for America's Got Talent. Okay. He goes out and he makes this film of himself with 4 prints that he's found. And it's a pretty raw film. And he says, I'm going to put the camera down and pour my plaster and stir it up and everything and pour these casts. And then he puts the camera down, he picks the camera right back up, and there you go. You see these 4 white footprints where he's poured the plaster. And he says, let's go down to the creek, and I'll show you where sometimes I found the print in the sand. And he goes down to the creek, and there's prints everywhere. It's weird. They're on top of one another.
Okay.
And where he even shows you, he's like, look here. And his breath picks up a little bit, which I thought was different. He seems like he's getting excited, like he's, wow, And it seems genuine. and he shows you where there's a print with a print on top of it. And he said, if this is a real animal, he says something like that, then there's multiple here. Has been right here. And then he follows them across the creek, the prints, and loses them. But then his breath really picks up because you see this thing walking in the distance, and then another one following it, and there's two of these things out in the distance, and he's really freaked. And it continues on a little bit, and then he shuts the camera off. To me, this has to be a hoax. It just has to be. But when you look at this, it just doesn't seem like a guy that would go out. I mean, it's a lot to go rent or buy 2 Bigfoot outfits, get 2 people willing to go out in the middle of nowhere with you and walk around in them with,
Sure.
Dude, I need you to take off work a couple of days because we're going to go out here. It's just like, so that one was kind of weird, but it's not enough to make me be a believer.
Sure.
So this was one heck of a week looking, and I feel like I took a teaspoon out of the ocean and presented it because there's so much to get into with this. I feel like there's no way you could really do it justice.
Definitely. And I mean, in addition to the Pacific Northwest, there's reports in Texas. We've already talked about Florida.
Ohio.
We've talked about North Carolina mountains, Ohio.
Pennsylvania.
There's reports in Delaware.
Yeah.
And it's, of all places, Delaware. Like, doesn't really strike me as vast expanses of woods for this thing to hide in, It's very interesting.
Is that not in the Triangle area, though, where the puckwudgies have been seen, too?
Oh, in Delaware?
Up in that... Like
that triangle,
Delaware.
what's that triangle called? That might touch into that, yeah. Yep, I think she's right.
Okay.
The something or other triangle. Not the Bermuda Triangle, obviously, but the, oh gosh. Our esteemed producer, Hannah, is currently looking this up for us.
We talked about this on the Puckwudgie episode if you want to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, Puckwudgies are like the
Bridgewater Triangle.
The Bridgewater Triangle. Puckwudgies are like the Ewok version of the Bigfoot, Yeah, Bigfoot's the Wookiee. He's Chewbacca, and then you got...
You ever think about the fact that the Ewoks had a dress that fit Princess Leia seems to imply they might have previously eaten a woman who was her size.
That has never crossed my mind. Very good. Interesting.
The Bridgewater Triangle is an area of about 200 square miles within southeastern Massachusetts.
I didn't think it touched into Delaware.
Okay, all right. So not...
I didn't remember that from the episode.
It does say various Bigfoot-like sightings.
In Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts.
Okay. So Bigfoot's everywhere, but we can't find him.
Yep.
So I'm landing on he does not exist.
Well, and there's also, in this day and age, there are a lot of game cameras in the woods.
Yes.
That take pictures on motion.
And we ain't found him yet.
Nope.
Now, folks, if you have young listeners, not because we're getting ready to say something off the wall, but if you have young listeners, turn us down a second or escort them out of the room because we're going to talk about something very precious to young listeners' ears. Okay. I noticed Santa Claus is the reverse of this.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Santa Claus is kind of the reverse of Bigfoot when it comes to belief.
Explain.
Well, it's like you have a ton of believers, and it's culturally okay to believe, even though he doesn't really exist.
Oh, okay.
But with this, it is not. Like if you say, on the first day at your job, you know what I mean? You're not going to say, yeah, I believe in Bigfoot.
I saw Bigfoot, yeah.
Yeah. But if you were to say, yeah, we do the Santa Claus thing in our house, we have young children. That's great. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So culturally, Santa Claus is kind of like the reverse of this. And so is Krampus, like if you live in Germany.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe Bigfoot just needs to start delivering presents to children.
And then all of a sudden, buddy, Bumbles won't bounce. Yeah.
Right, Disney, that's your next movie.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed this. Like I said, I feel like there was no way to do it justice, but I wish he was real. And then in a way, I'm glad he's not because it means he won't end up in a zoo.
That's true.
Yeah. So.
Like the silverback gorilla.
Like the silverback gorilla and the panda, which I drove all the way to Washington to see, and it hid behind a pole the entire time.
When I was in when I was in elementary school, we had gone to the zoo, and on the gorilla enclosure, there was it was obviously really thick glass,
Right.
but there was a visible mark where you could tell one of those gorillas had hit that glass with their fist, like really
Oh,
hard.
wow.
And it stayed that way for quite a while. For a number of years, trips to the zoo, that glass still looked like that.
Wow.
And it was like, that's a little unnerving.
Wow.
Don't make the gorilla mad.
Yeah, you're not supposed to show your teeth, right? Don't smile at them.
I think that's right. Showing your
Yeah.
teeth is a sign of aggression to I think, different primates.
Yeah. A lot of times if a dog is panting and it looks like he's smiling, he or she is smiling, it means they're anxious. Yeah, we're the only ones. Smiling is actually weird. You're not supposed to show your teeth.
Your dog
and
doesn't
smile.
know what you're doing when you're smiling at your dog.
That's right.
Yeah.
They think you're freaked out by them. Well, that's
All
about
right.
all I got.
Well, that was a fun one.
Good. I'm glad.
All right, folks, you can email us, wmuhpodcast@gmail.com. If you have seen Bigfoot, we would love to hear from you.
Yes.
Tell us where.
I'll almost give you my cell number if you. Yes, I want to hear.
You can also find us on social media at WMUH Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Like, rate, and subscribe.
And we'll see you next week.
May Bigfoot always remain blurry.